Welcome to our Multiliteracies curriculum design project titled Ads in Society. My name is John Snyder, and my partner Elizabeth Cole will present the second half of this slideshow movie. Since Elizabeth and I both teach 8th grade English, we created this unit with that population in mind. Ads in Society is an 8-week unit designed for an ELA classroom. This unit could easily be applied to a high school population simply by incorporating more challenging class readings. Each lesson is designed to fit into a 60-minute period. We have several unit objectives, which essentially boil down to students learning how to analyze all forms of advertisements by examining and interpreting the techniques applied by their creators. We want students to be able to think like a marketer and a media critic by the end of this unit. We also want students to understand the cyclical relationship between ads and society, that ads and society simultaneously affect one another. We want students to come away from this unit with an especially deep understanding of the relationship between teen culture and advertising because it is immediately relevant. There will be several forms of assessments conducted throughout this unit to measure students' progress towards achieving the aforementioned objectives. Formative assessments include almost daily in-class multimodal reflections, blog reflections, which are completed twice per week for homework, and teacher-led writing and group conferences. The second half of the unit will focus on the two summative assessments, an ad campaign group project and presentation, and an ad campaign analysis paper. These assessments will be presented in depth toward the middle of this presentation. Since this is a multimodal unit, students will communicate their learning through a variety of modes. Blog reflections will require posting the image of an ad encountered outside of school and writing informally to explain personal reactions towards it. Students will present their ideas through drawings during in-class reflections and their group project. Writing will occur informally and formally during reflections and the final analysis paper, respectively. Students will create a multimodal presentation using PowerPoint or similar software during their group project presentation. Video commercials will be created as part of the group project and displayed during presentations. Finally, students will express themselves verbally in class during partner discussion, teacher conferencing, whole class discussion, and presentations. Week 1 would introduce students to the essential questions of the unit and generate interest in the topic by connecting advertising to the students' daily lives. The Merchants of Cool is a captivating frontline documentary from 2001 that shows how companies exploit teenagers by analyzing social trends to devise persuasive marketing campaigns. After watching this video, students would begin to reflect on how advertising affects them. On Friday, they will be introduced to the class blog, where they will be required to explain their reaction to an ad they encountered outside of school twice per week for homework. This process would continue for the entire 8 weeks of the unit. Here is an example of a lesson from week 1. The objective is for students to visually articulate advertising's effect on teen culture. The lesson would begin with a YouTube clip of a teen-oriented commercial, such as Claricel's Picture Me Naked commercial, followed by a discussion connecting the video to the Merchants of Cool. Students would then read the related article, Badvertising Targeting Tweens, and complete a T-chart that compares the ideas in the article to the Merchants of Cool. Finally, students would create a color drawing that represents the commonalities between these texts, therefore representing advertising's effect on teens. These drawings would be posted for all students to view during a later class. During week 2, students will reflect on advertising's effects outside of teen culture and gain a basic understanding of the history of advertising. Students will complete a scavenger hunt using the internet to determine answers to a broad list of questions related to ad history. They will also be introduced or reintroduced to the concept of author's purpose and begin to analyze ads by identifying author's purpose based on ad features. For every ad that students analyze, they will be required to complete a path chart, which will be explained in the next slide. On Friday, students will be introduced to the terms ethos, pathos, and logos, or how an ad's features can be categorized by their appeal to credibility, emotion, and logic, respectively. Ethos, pathos, and logos will then be added to the path chart for the rest of the unit, and students will consider these concepts in the rest of the ads they analyze. Here is a basic example of the path chart. It requires students to identify a text's purpose, audience, subject, and self, which means the text's effect on the reader. As new ad concepts are introduced, such as ethos, pathos, and logos, and the ad techniques in week 3, questions related to these concepts will be added to this path chart, and students will have to explain their use in each ad they analyze. In week 3, students will be introduced to 9 persuasion techniques used by advertisers, which include association, call to action, games and activities, fear, prizes, repetition, sales and price, sense appeal, and testimonials and endorsements. After being introduced to these techniques, students will then apply them to ads of their choice that they select using the internet. Later in the week, 6 design elements will be introduced, which include visual image, slogan, logo, text, color, and space. On Friday, students will hear about the realities of creating ads firsthand from an advertising professional. They will have the opportunity to ask questions and make connections between the content they have learned to the speaker's experiences.
Our project contained 2 summative assessments. The first was a collaborative project that required students to use their knowledge about ad design and creation to develop their own advertising campaign. A critical analysis paper was a second major assignment, and this asked them to look at the creation of advertisements with a critical eye and to reflect upon and debate any potential social consequences of advertising and their campaign in general. We wanted students to synthesize the information we taught them about advertisements and then critique their own contribution to the field. We broke down our major assessments into different categories and then ranked them according to the time and effort each would take, as well as their importance as a form of assessment in the overall look at that project. We structured our 2 summative tasks to ensure that we were assessing a variety of literacy skills ranging from the traditional to cultural to digital literacies. During week 4, students will begin their advertising campaign project. At this point, students will have received 3 weeks of background information pertaining to the topic and will be ready to apply it. One interesting aspect of our ad campaign project is that students will take on specific roles within their groups that reflect the actual jobs within an ad agency. Students will take a survey about their perceived strengths and talents that will help to match them with the role that will best suit them. Since this project requires them to research the advertising history of a product, a fairly unique task for most 8th graders, it is important that students have a review lesson about how to locate, interpret, and determine the reliability of information on the internet. Most students simply conduct Google or Yahoo searches and use the first few results, but these sites do not always guarantee reliable information and can steer students off course. In order to develop their information literacy and to prepare them to be successful on this project, our first lesson plan is a simple research review game. Throughout this unit, we want to emphasize the importance of the process throughout the project as well as the product. So we have designated several days for students to draft, script, rehearse, and conference with peers and teachers as the project develops. Week 5 will have students moving forward on the project and solving any problems that may present themselves along the way. At this point, many lessons about how to use different sources of technology such as cameras and video editing software will be necessary as well. During week 6, students will complete their projects and focus on preparing to present their work to the class. Since we have tried to make this assignment authentic, students will have been asked to pitch their advertising campaign to classmates as though they were truly their client. Because of this, students will be asked to constructively and respectfully critique the work of their peers and to ask questions about the direction of their campaign. We want students to view advertising from both sides and to use their knowledge of ad strategies, techniques, and design to provide meaningful feedback to each other. We shift gears during week 7 to push students the extra step toward critical thinking and analysis. Now that they have created this ad campaign, we want them to reflect upon their creation and consider any consequences for their creation, both positive and negative. At this point, students will be asked to write a formal paper that describes their analysis of their work. Students will need to critically examine their work and debate whether or not they have created a campaign that empowers or disempowers different social groups, and whether or not it could have any serious social consequences. It is in this task that students will truly be asked to examine their own thinking and feeling about advertising and to justify whether it is beneficial, harmful, or a complicated mixture of the two. In order to assist in their critical thinking about advertising, we will create subvertisements that mock or criticize advertising by using it against itself. Students will learn about this form of media activism and create their own. You may remember this from one of Dr. Morgan's required articles that talked about culture jamming. Although our final writing task focuses primarily on traditional literacy skills such as reading and writing, we felt it was important to include it in this unit. Although multiliteracies and 21st century skills are highly important, both John and I agree that traditional literacies remain important and so deserve a prominent place in the classroom. Although this task was not necessarily multimodal in nature, it does reflect the type of writing assessments that students will be asked to do throughout high school and college. For that reason, we deemed that it was necessary to include. One unit or study focus will not be sufficient to truly enact a pedagogy of multiliteracies. In order to continue what we have set up during this unit beyond advertising and even beyond the ELA classroom, we would emphasize a few key points. One primary and relatively simple strategy for maintaining a pedagogy of multiliteracies is to incorporate technology in an authentic and meaningful way that reflects true use. We also promote a curriculum that focuses on project-based assessment, such as the advertising campaign project, over knowledge level tasks. We also want to prepare students for the colleges or careers that are waiting for them after high school. For this reason, we have made this an additional focus for our curriculum. In order to prepare students for the next step, it is absolutely necessary to help students develop skills beyond simply reading and writing. Using the guidance of the New London Group, we have developed this unit focusing on the design and creation of advertisements. Learning design will help students to construct and deconstruct meaning about this specific type of text. It is important to maintain this focus on design and creation of media in order to truly scaffold students with their interpretation, analysis, and critique of various texts. Last, but certainly not least, we wanted to create a curriculum that was relevant and meaningful for students in that it addressed issues that were current and important to teens at that age level. We wanted to make students feel like the experts on the topic of advertising and to authentically engage them with a task beyond just memorizing facts and details. We felt that we met this goal with our advertising unit. We want to continue developing units of study that are relevant and meaningful for our students.